Artur Rubinstein at 90 is one of the wonders of the modern world. Put very simply, he is a giant in music, possessed of an extraordinary gift for interpretation, an uncanny memory, and a unique, sweet singing touch at the keyboard. The emotion his playing transmits has moved millions of people down the years, in thousands of live performances, on television, and through the extraordinary popularity of his recordings. But Rubinstein is more than a musician. For 90 years, he has demonstrated a prodigious appetite for living, for food, for wine, for art, for painting, for sculpture, for philosophy, for books, for travel, for friends, for family. He is still dynamic and healthy and active. He's completing the second volume of his memoirs, living in this charming house just off the fashionable Avenue Foch in Paris, the city he loves above all others. To me, the man, Artur Rubinstein, is as enthralling and captivating as Artur Rubinstein, the musician.
My love of life is very, very, very unconditional, believe me or not. You see, look here, just now, you know very well that I'm not able anymore to read nor to write. I lost the center of my eyesight. I don't see what I look at. I can still live. I'm not blind because I see around everything. So I am still independent in a little way, not very much. So I discovered suddenly a new beauty of life, new beauty of life. When I was seeing, I was reading too much. Some books which I shouldn't have read because they were not intelligent enough, I lost my time on it. They prevented me from studying more music and playing more. I had never the time to hear beautiful, beautiful compositions because I couldn't go to concerts. I was traveling myself, playing myself. Now I have endless records. I spend all my money on records. I listen to the Mahler symphonies, beautiful performances by my colleagues, by violinists, by pianists, by quintets. I get angry. I discuss it with them when they played badly. I mean, I discuss inside, of course. They are not here, so they don't hear what I have to say, but they enjoy it tremendously. A new life.
In your book, My Young Years, you say that you adopted very early in life a motto expressed in a Polish phrase, Nie dam się.
Nie dam się. Well, the translation is not quite easy because it is a little strong in Polish, but it means actually, I will never give in. I will not give in with much strength. Give in is something a little bit weak. There is no word for it, you know. I will fight it off. I will be brave. Well, I don't know, something like that, but strong. And I learned it because I was present in Lodz, in my birth town, to a pogrom which the Russian Cossacks had made in the streets. I was very young. I was a little schoolboy. I think I was 7 years old. And we had to run away from Cossacks who beat up the population and make them bleed and so on. We saw blood on the thing. We were terrified, absolutely. And I learned something that I must build up in me courage. I try to be courageous, not to be afraid of anything. And I'm not afraid of anything. I was never really afraid of anything at all. Not afraid. I suffered about it. I took it in very much. I was unhappy about this and that. I didn't have money. I didn't have this woman or that. Love, music, fiasco, no success, and all you want and so on. But I was always rather courageous. And I found out that probably belongs to my race, you see. I must tell you, I have been since childhood a very proud Jew, and to remain Jew. You see, I admired their courage for the 2,000 years in exile. I admired the incredible character of the Jews to stick to their religion, to stick to their race. They are the only old race preserved as they were.
Can we talk about your music? When people say, as they do, that you are the greatest pianist of this century, do you believe them?
I do not believe them, but I get very angry when I hear that, because it is absolute, sheer, horrible nonsense. There isn't such a thing as the greatest pianist of any time, of anyone, nor anything. Nothing in art can be the best. It is only different. You see, I will tell you my theory about it. I don't think that an artist, whatever it is, a painter, sculptor, musician, performer, composer, whatever, somebody who has the title of being an artist, of having to do with arts, must have an unconfoundable personality. There must be the one and nobody else. He is Joe Smith and there's nobody else like that. For me, if one says, oh, he plays, you know, it's a second Liszt or second Paderewski or a second is already wrong, you know. If he's a second, he's no good at all. He's an imitator. An artist in any way must be alone, a world by himself. If I were questioning somebody and asked you, for instance, well, who do you really think the greatest of all times? Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, Titian, Velasquez, Rembrandt. What would you do?
It's impossible.
Each one of them is a world by itself, a world. If I go to see the whole exhibition of Rembrandt that I saw in Amsterdam once, 350 pictures, I mean not all, but I mean most of it, on an anniversary of his, I assure you, I thought there was nothing else in the world possible. But then a few weeks later, there was a little exposition here of most works of Vermeer. I had exactly the same feeling. Then I saw an exhibition of Titian, exactly the same feeling. They are alone, they are a world by itself. You know, that is something. A Beethoven is alone. A Mozart is alone. There are not many Mozart, some like him with Mozart and others and Beethoven. No. Look here, if I'm a pianist, well, I'm a pianist of my kind, which pleased so many people who liked the kind of my playing, who were my followers, who had enjoyed it, might even had a great emotion out of it and so on. But then there are others who get emotions and get very moved by other pianists, this one and that one and this one and this one. Who can say that this one is the greatest? It's a nonsense. I hate that.
We're going to hear you play the Grieg A minor piano concerto. Can you tell me your feelings about it and what it's meant historically in your career?
It's very funny. Grieg, you mean?
The Grieg A minor concerto.
Well, it's a very funny, horrible story, you know. I was brought up by a very severe German professor of the Brahms school, you know, the Brahms Joachim school, against Liszt, Wagner, etc. You know, that was my upbringing in music. So in those times, Grieg was considered small fry, you know, a man to be neglected. Some young pianist who played the Grieg concerto was looked down upon, you know. What did he play? Grieg or... Well, I was brought up like that. Then I came to the United States, and there was some sort of fight about my recording of Tchaikovsky concerto. There was some sort of quarrel at my recording company about it. They wanted to console me after that quarrel, that we will please let you play now a great Grieg concerto which is selling more than anything else. It's the greatest sale in America. They love it. I said, this concerto, not very, very important, you know. Well, my wife, who always takes care of things, you know, which are important financially too, she has the family, bought that Grieg concerto, put it on the piano stand. I played it through with, I learned it in 3 days and made right away also a record of it with Ormandy in the Philadelphia Orchestra. But you know, later on, I remember Rachmaninoff at a dinner in my house told me that for him the Grieg concerto was the best concerto ever written without any exception, which was a little exaggerated in my belief, but still it can inspire a man like Rachmaninoff to say such a thing. Do you know that since ever I'm all the time thinking, what was the reason for any success I have had in my life? Because I certainly do not play the piano as well as most pianists who play. I never worked so much as they do, you know. They play the piano to perfection. I know young people now who play the piano as one can't play it better. But then, when I hear them play that way, I have my little question for them. I ask them, when will you start to make music? Make music, you see, that is something which preoccupies me. That means make music is something metaphysical. A painting is a painting, visible. A sculpture is visible. A poem is visible on the paper. Well, music is visible but not audible. I mean, it exists only because there are also necessary to it the other part of musicians, the interpreters. I belong to this group, you see. I call interpreters good talents, the composers geniuses, if they are the great composers I speak of, you see. But what happened to me is something quite strange, which I observe very often, you see. I observe the fact that I come on the stage for a concert as representation, as picture of what happens on the stage. It is rather ridiculous because a fat little man like me appearing there in an evening dress looks like an undertaker, you know, funeral things, and the piano has a little look of a coffin, if you like to know, you know. Well, and the public fills the hall, let's say. They come after a good dinner. The women look at each other, you know, at other women's dresses. Men think mostly about business or some games or some sports or God knows what. And there I have this crowd, not entirely quite musical, not really knowers of music, but who like music, who love music. And that is a very difficult proposition. I have to hold them, you know, in attention by my emotion, nothing else. I can't look at them, I can't make faces, I can't tell them, now comes the great moment, now you listen, now is the great thing for you, nothing of the kind, huh? I have to play. Look there straight in front of me, but there is a certain antenna, there is a certain secret thing, there is a thing which goes out, emanates from me, from my emotion, not from me, from my emotion, from the feeling. You like to call it soul if you like to. I don't know what soul means, but it's the word which one uses very much without knowing what it represents really. But this something, which let me call it for the moment soul if you like, projects something which I do feel that it is doing it. It suddenly puts the audience into my hands. There's a moment where I feel them all here. I can do anything. I can hold them with one little note in the air, and they will not breathe because they wait what happens next, you know, what will come in the music. That is a great, great moment. Not always does it happen, but when it does happen, it is a great moment of our lives.
You've said, or you've written, that when you are playing, it is like making love. And I wonder how literally you meant that. How do you mean it?
Well, I must say, I always had a sensual, not sensuous, but sensual feeling of my fingers when I have to strike something which goes out of my inner self, you know. When I have to sing out the Nocturne of Chopin, I sing it inside, but I sing it like a love song, you see, and then under my fingers, I feel what you said, I feel a rather sensual pleasure, you know, in touching it. I become excited when I touch it E flat, which will give that sound which I need to hear. That too.
Would you explain to me, in very simple terms, as someone who is not a musician, how you produce the tone that you do?
I can tell you that. I learned from a Czechoslovakian singer who was very famous in times, who sang with Caruso in old times, in my young years. It was Emmy Destin. Emmy Destin struck me when she sang with a marvelous, marvelous voice, which just acted on me sensually, you know, which made me cry by the sheer voice, the sheer sound of voice, you know. Sometimes the sound itself, not the melody or the composition, but the quality of the voice does something to me, you know. And
yes.
She had that. And she had, of course, as all singers, to take her breath at the right moment. We have to take, in a way, our breath at the right moment when we speak. To make a phrase clear, we have to make that little stop and cut the phrase into the pieces which make sense, isn't it so?
Yes.
But that same came to me as idea when she sang. I started suddenly to feeling that I have to take breath at the piano. I sometimes press my finger on it only, which means nothing, because there is the hammer, percussion hammer. Nothing can change much in the piano. It's a percussion instrument, isn't it? But it has a vibration. When you let the string stay without letting the hammer down on it, it vibrates in the air. You have the pedal to keep it a long while if you want to, if you can. And there is a certain pressure which makes it being struck in a certain way, not hard, but just the way you want, and it sinks in you. Well, I found that for myself. And I couldn't teach that for any money in the world. I tell the young people, sing. Sing inside. You have no voice, that doesn't matter. You have the best voice if you feel singing in you.
You've always enjoyed and wanted to play composers who were regarded by your teachers or your peers as perhaps too avant-garde or too modern.
You say that I was always for the avant-garde. That is not quite the term I would use. You know, when I was young, I was like all the young, enthusiastic for what is new. I fought for them. I fought for Debussy, for Ravel, for Szymanowski, for Stravinsky, for Prokofiev. They were the people of my young life. Later, now, the avant-garde of today is good for the young, not for me. I'm absolutely in the dark. I don't understand at all what they mean. I think that we have no right to judge what we do not understand. I can judge only something which I understand very, very well. Then I can give you the points why I can fight my point and everything. But what can I say about music of those men like Stockhausen or Boulez, which make noises which are for me incomprehensible? Sometimes they impress me loud enough or long enough or short enough. I mean, I see the actual things which I hear, but do not understand at all that language.
You've often said that you are the happiest man you know. I think people would be very interested to know what are the springs of that happiness.
My happiness came, a feeling of that happiness, the conscience of that, came right after, attempt to take my life. I wanted to commit suicide at the ripe age of 20. because I arrived at a sort of 0 hour, if I may call it like that. You know, I mean, there was nothing for me. I was stuck in Berlin on my way to Paris. I couldn't get there because I had no money. I promised to come back with some money and then give concert again. I couldn't afford it anymore. I was in a hotel in Berlin, which after a few weeks I couldn't pay anymore for my room. The woman I loved very much was married and promised to divorce and marry me, didn't, and broke up with me. I didn't dare to speak about it to my parents, and so I was completely cut off from them. Nobody knew where I was. Well, I tried to commit suicide, and I still live. I mean, it didn't go. Some things I tried to hang myself with broke, and I fell on the floor, and then I was unhappy. Then I played a little the piano. Then I was very hungry, and when I walked into the street, I was born again in a way. You know, I was giving up my life, and then I came back to it. Well, this coming back was a very strange one, because I suddenly realized quite clearly what a fool I was before. That life is not at all depending on things like not paying a hotel, or like a woman who might leave you, or like the career being stopped. Life is what it gives you. It's in front of you.
Do you believe in God?
Of course I believe, but my God is not a gentleman with a beard. It is a power. It is an incredibly extraordinary power. I was preoccupied all my life, as I still am, with the one question which matters. One single question matters. What are we here for? Who made it? Who started it? Nobody has ever had a glimpse and the slightest idea why it started. It started with laws of religion. They right away were dominating us. They were governing us. They were telling us this is right, this is wrong. You must believe in this. You must believe in God. I'm glad to believe, but there must be a sign too. There must be something to show us why and what. Well, you cannot say that an earthquake which kills thousands of people, children, wives and so on, is a thing which God made for the good of humanity. Somebody asked me the other day, do you believe in a life after your death? It was a very plausible question. I said, I do not think, I don't believe in it. But if there is a life after our death, of course I will be delighted. It would be a wonderful thing. But if I believe there is a life and found that there is nothing, that I'm simply a crushed animal because I had it, my life is over altogether, well, I would be very disappointed if I could express it then. Well, in any case, I think that my consideration is it's not too wrong. I mean, I think there's something in it, don't you think? Well, that is my conception. But as I come to the moment where I believe that what we really have got, what we have gotten, what is ours, is what we have, life. People who think that happiness is to laugh all the time and to enjoy a good cutlet or beefsteak, you know, and go to bed nicely and so on, and fine, and win at the game, you know, or something like that. This is stupid. It is stupid. There is nothing in it. Is that want a contrast? They don't enjoy it. Well, I don't know. That's not life. Life is bite into it, to take absolutely as it is.
Can I ask you this? What emotion do you feel when you contemplate that death is going to extinguish so rare a machine as you are, a computer with so much heart, and so crammed with music and experience? What do you feel?
You know, I didn't give it much thought, you know. There is such a thing which I do believe. There is a word which I feel it's not ever clear to anybody, you know. We use in every language the word soul easily. Lama in French. Every language uses it. And we don't know what it is really, where to place it. And I think this thing is in us, the metaphysical power somehow, which just emanates. You know, I feel that always, as I told you before, in my concerts. We don't give it much thought, but there is something floating, there is something unknown around us in there, that is. And I think that that has no place to disappear. So after our death, if we had an amount of it in us somewhere or something, it's around. I remember once on a very rainy day in London, this great singer, Amy Destin, asked me very, well, let's say innocently, you know, how did Chopin play? Well, of course, I didn't hear Chopin play at all and so on. But I can only imagine something. And I was just going to tell her, oh, look here, I mean, they would ask me such silly questions. But somehow, by some instinct, I went to the piano, you know, and played a little piece of Chopin that I never played in concerts. And it was me who played. I played that piece through, and we both were getting a little pale, you know. I wasn't playing it myself, you know. I felt that. I wouldn't have played it like that. Make what you want of it, you know. I give it just to say, a moment of my life. Well, that's it.
We're also going to hear you play the Saint-Saëns G minor concerto, which you've described in the past as your war horse. Could you tell us what you feel about that piece of music?
Well, it was my war horse, you know. I will tell you, it was the very first difficult piece with orchestra after Mozart, which I played with love and so on, but which was somehow accessible to me technically and so on. And this one was a difficult piece to master. And I was very proud to play it off rather well with great gusto, you know, with great elan. And it became my war horse because everybody seemed to like it. And it was a sure success if I didn't play it too badly on some occasion. So you see, I could count on it always. And you know, it became, of course, a very close and dear friend of mine. I'm very fond of it. And then I must tell you, again, musically, it has many things to be said about it. I mean, good things to be said. And I must quote again a composer that will astonish again my listeners. Ravel, Maurice Ravel, who did the most fantastic orchestrations. We all admire his orchestrations so very much. Told me, he was a friend of mine, I asked him once, where did you get that fantastic art of orchestrating, and everything sounds so marvelously. It's a mysterious sound that you produce. He said, you will be very astonished from the G minor piano concerto of Saint-Saëns, because it's the most marvelously orchestrated piece of music I know. This I heard said by Ravel. It means quite a lot for this Saint-Saëns concerto, I think. I couldn't do anything better than that.